The North Sea has traditionally provided a living for northeast fishing communities, but years of poor management by government has led to overfishing, overcapacity, and a situation that sees fish being dumped at sea while skippers are having to break the law to make ends meet. For some, facing ever-reducing fish quotas, more and more cheap imports, and EC rules and regulations, the situation is becoming progressively worse, with many being trapped in an industry that offers little or no future.
Me, I would like to get out of the industry. I don't see a future in my chosen style of fishing, way of fishing, and I would like to get out, but I can't. The only way I'll get out is to go bankrupt, and then, in which case I'll lose me boat, and possibly me house, and possibly me partner's houses. You cannot face that, so you just got to struggle on and see what happens. But I don't see any future at all for me in this industry. None at all. I got into the fishing as a natural progression. My father was a fisherman, and I'd been to sea with him in my school holidays right from primary school, really. I mean, there's a lot of jobs where the sons tend to follow the fathers in the career, mining, shipbuilding, steel making, but it's even more so with fishing because it's more of a way of life rather than a job. Apart from the tradition element, I mean, I saw my father and my uncle transform their lifestyles by working hard and being extremely competent fishermen. There used to be a big fish and meat processing factory here for starters, and all these is new processing premises, as you can see. They've just been built in probably the last 5-10 years. It's nearly all been rebuilt, these places here. Because prior to that, along this front was the main processes. All the fish merchants had their stores along here, whereas quite a few of these are now into either retail outlets or different uses shops, you see. But it was along here there used to be hundreds of boxes of fish after the market here, all being processed in these units. In those days there was stacks of fish waiting to be filleted and packed and sent away. And of course all those men that did that had families and had to live, their shopping and their socialising, so the whole area was much more vibrant and lively. And the typical market in those days was, 2,000 and 3,000 boxes, and you probably had 30 to 40 bigger boats specifically catching whitefish. Now there's only 2. This map's a chart of the North Sea, well, the northern section of the North Sea. It's obviously you've got Britain here and Denmark here, just the tip of Norway here. Dogger Bank itself is here. It's quite a large area of relatively shallow water in the middle of the sea. It's I don't know, they reckon all the marine life starts with sunlight. Well, in the Dogger Bank, there's places where there's only 40 or 50 feet of water. But that's the Dogger Bank itself, that's the main ground that we use. We generally, most of our operations are centred on that there, and sometimes up here in this area.
Having learned his trade on a succession of family-owned boats, Alan took the decision in 1977 to invest in the building of his own, the Congener. For someone then just 26, it represented a major financial commitment.
At the time, you needed a certain percentage of the build cost as a deposit, which I'd saved my share of it, and my uncle and my father came in as partners and were put up that share of deposit. But the capital cost, we had to borrow the majority of it. We were awarded a government grant of 25% towards the building of it, and we had to borrow the rest from a bank, nearly £250,000. As I recall, my father used to say, "Are you not worried about this? Do you not lose sleep about this?" And I can honestly say I never did. I was quite confident that this was going to be the thing to do and the way to go, and I went in full of enthusiasm and quite confident that there wasn't a problem.
Government scientists, using data from landings and their own research vessels, provide estimates of the size of the fish stocks. Years of overfishing have taken their toll.
Well, the trend has been a progressive decline in general, especially for cod, which has been subject to very high fishing pressure for a long time. And unfortunately, the recruitment of young fish to the stock has not been good for the last 8 years. So the scientists have been worried about this for a very long time. But the problem has got worse since the war with the increases in technology, diesel-powered ships, bigger nets and more efficient nets, fish-finding gear, and so on. It has been getting progressively more and more acute.
When they introduced them in 1983, there was quite a good large quota still available, and you could make a living, pay for your boat, etc., etc. We now find ourselves in a position, being a vessel that specifically prosecutes white fisheries, that we aren't allowed enough quota to make a viable living. Pay the men, never mind make the boat pay, and modernise boats and replace boats. So this quota being cut every year is now in the situation where it is virtually impossible to stay legal and make a living.
Legally, skippers must discard any over-quota or undersized fish back into the sea, even though many are already dead and dying.
There were some vessels, as in any business, some are more successful than others, and they caught more fish than are out of land. So some of them, rather than dump them, brought them home and sold them on the side. Blackfish out the back door, unrecorded, undeclared. While a fisherman's allowed to catch enough to make a good living, maintain his vessel, maintain his investment, support his family, support his crew and their families, if he then lands blackfish, well, he's been a naughty boy. The problem being now that you can't do that without landing blackfish. If you're not cheating, you're either catching a different species or you're going under very rapidly now, increasingly rapidly, year by year.
What they really have to do when they're looking at fish quotas is to really say, well, what impact is this going to have if we reduce it by 60%? How will that affect the fishermen? They don't. That's the problem. They reduce the quantities and they expect fishermen to live within those the same environment with huge constraints on their livelihoods and huge constraints on their money.
26, 7, 28, 28, 9, 29, you're done. There, you're done, 29.
And the pressure on the declining fish stocks continues, with the numbers of vessels involved in fishing the North Sea being largely unregulated and unrestricted.
The problem with the catching sector in the British fishing industry is that it is overcapitalised. Too many vessels have been attracted into the industry over time, and over time again that results in a depletion of the fisheries resources, too many vessels catching too little fish. Undoubtedly, from an economic perspective, there has to be a reduction in fishing effort. That's what all the economic analysis leads to.
A boat like the Congener would only attract about a quarter of its market value through the decommissioning scheme. Scant reward for a lifetime's work and investment.
One has to remember that the majority of fishermen are just ordinary people who have borrowed extensively to buy their boats. Now those are the people who will be, if the squeeze on the industry continues, will begin to start dropping out through bankruptcy.
It's going away to Grimsby.
Give them that idea. We'll sell on the boat tomorrow.
Right.
And if we split the 6.5 shares, the 6 of us plus the boy.
6.5.
When we built these boats, I mean, we always, you didn't think it would come to it, but you always thought, well, if it does come to it, I'll be able to sell it. Probably in the last 5-10 years, that's changed, where a lot of fishermen who have had what they've always thought of as an asset, now find that because of the state of the industry, there's no demand for boats. Like the houses, they're not worth the mortgage that you have out on them. Because I've taken the plunge to be a boat owner and, a commitment to modernise my boat, I'm now in a situation where it's not a security, it's a liability. I mean, every chance I'll lose this house if I lose a boat, so from being a secure asset, it's now a definite liability, a secure liability. Ideally, I'd want to stay in a vibrant industry, running the boat I've worked since I left school for, and doing what I do best is run a boat like this. But I don't see the possibility under this, well, regime, shall I call it, that that's possible anymore.